This is the High-Stakes Lowdown, a RotoViz podcast brought to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship. I'm Eric Balkman from the High-Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the Better Sports Network, and the FFPC. You can connect with me on X at Eric Balkman and the FFPC on X at FFPC. Before we get into the show, I want to remind everyone that you can get a listeners-only 10% discount to RotoViz by using the code RVRadio2025. That's RVRadio 2025. Your subscription gives you unlimited access to all of the RotoViz content and tools, and it supports the podcast channel as well. Now, without further ado, here's the latest episode of the RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown. Hi, hello, and welcome. It is an early happy Thanksgiving to everyone watching out there, listening, streaming, downloading. Thank you so much for making the RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown a part of your Thanksgiving week. My name is Eric Balkman. You know me from the High-Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the Fantasy Football Players Championship, and the FFPC Insider Access Show on the Better Sports Network. Tonight, we're going to come to you with a really good jam-packed info or a jam-packed show filled with info and hopefully some entertainment as well. Before we get into the show, I want to remind everybody that you can play the FFPC Weekly Challenge right now. There is no draft, no salary cap. Just pick 10 or 12 players dependent upon if you want to play with kickers and defenses or not. That's at myffpc.com. The slant is only one player per NFL team. So if you want Justin Herbert, you can't have Ladd McConkey. If you want Trey Tucker, you can't have Brock Bowers. Win up to $2,500, 10, 30, and 100 team contests available now at myffpc.com. That's myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live. I'll tell you about what's going on for Thanksgiving week with the FFPC family of podcasts. We are not skimping on any shows. We're going to go full bore this week as well. And that week continues tonight as we get into the RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown. My guests tonight are two longtime players that have 47 plus, it's probably more than 47, but at 47 that I could count, FFPC League championships to their name. They are gunning for a $1 million grand prize, not only in the FFPC Big Gorilla, but the FFPC Main Event as well. Currently, they have one team in the main event that they drafted that sits in 51st place overall as they get ready, not only for the league playoffs coming up this weekend, but the championship round sprint that will begin in week 15. Please welcome onto the show brothers from the same mother. It is Brad Kruse and it is Bob Kruse hanging out tonight. Gentlemen, good evening, welcome, and an early happy Thanksgiving to both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Eric. Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure to have you. And listen, I want to get into this right away. So, Bob, I initially asked Brad if he wanted to be on, and he said yes, but I want to have Bob come on because apparently this team that's in the top 60 in the main event, you were the mastermind behind drafting this team.
I was lucky enough to do that. We usually like to stay behind the scenes, be the brains and let Brad be the beauty, but
that's a failing strategy.
Be part of this, so that would be great.
And this team was drafted live in Las Vegas, Bob.
It was.
That's exciting because
that was a great time.
It's what day was this a Friday draft, a Saturday draft? When was it?
It was a Saturday draft. Saturday, I can't remember if it was at 10 a.m. Or so. Maybe it was 1.
But this was one of the last teams that you had drafted then for drafting season, correct?
That is correct. It was my last team, I believe.
Interesting. If only you could have squeezed in one more draft, maybe it'd be in first place overall. You never know.
That's right.
How these things work. All right, so Bob, let's lead things off. The news we got today was that the Chargers are opening up Omarion Hampton's practice window. He was at practice today. They have 21 days to activate him. Whether they take all 21 is kind of up in the air. It's looking like they won't need the full 3 weeks. In fact, there's a chance he could play this weekend. However, what we have seen over the course of the season and over the course of Hampton being hurt, we've seen Kamani Vidal sort of like go alternate weeks, right? He has a really big week where he goes Boffo, and then the next week he's hardly heard from at all. But the fact that he's had these 3 big weeks or 4 big weeks or whatever it's been like, how do you think when Hampton comes back, whether that's this weekend or a future weekend or whatever, how do you think the Chargers work Hampton back in? And how much of the backfield touches, how much of a role do you think Kamani Vidal has earned with his performance so far this year?
I think he has earned a role, although I don't think it's going to be all that significant when he comes back, when Vidal comes back. Maybe the first game he'll establish a little bit more, but I think it is Hampton's team. Vidal's been great for some flex plays for us and been great fill-in, but I don't see him being a long-term solution. He can maybe be borderline flex depending on how your team is set up, but I don't see him being a big role moving forward.
Do you think, Bob, and let's just, for the sake of argument here, let's just say Hampton comes back this weekend. He comes back right away. Now, the Chargers this week, no buys for anybody this week, which is great. The Chargers are hosting the Raiders. They are 10-point favorites. This should set up as a positive game script for both Hampton and Vidal. Is it too much to say that Vidal still has one starting worthy week right away left here at least? In against the Raiders here with Hampton being his first week back? Would you roll the dice and play Vidal? I mean, obviously it depends upon what your other options are, but in a vacuum, do you think Vidal is flex worthy right away this week?
I think he's in the consideration for flex. Again, depends on your team, but first game back, you're never sure. He maybe has goal line carries, which can really boost up those points, but if they bring Hampton back, I think they're comfortable. And so I think Vidal is looking at a 35-40% share maybe. And it's really touchdown dependent on whether or not he's going to be that flex guy.
Yeah, I think you're right. And we'll see. It's really difficult for me to say, oh, Hampton's back. He hasn't played since week 5. And all of a sudden he's getting 80% of the touches. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think you're right. I think Vidal gets the better part of 50%, maybe more than 50% of the touches this weekend for sure. And we'll see how it plays out. Again, it's the Raiders, so this is a good week for both Vidal and potentially Hampton as well. Brad, when I looked at this team that you guys have in 51st place overall, I counted not 2, not 3, but 4 tight ends on this team. Now, I understand FFPC is tight end premium. I get all that. But the names on this roster, I mean, I know you have Brenton Strange on this squad who is, out on IR for, seemingly 5-6 weeks or whatever it was. But Darren Waller, AJ Barner, Brock Wright, all these guys are still figuring onto the team. Do you envision roles for these guys for this particular squad, not only for the league playoffs this weekend, but the championship round as well?
Well, you know what they say about a team that has 4 tight ends.
It doesn't have any.
Yeah, that's unfortunately we had Laporta and Kraft on this team, and they've gone out the last 2-3 weeks. So we've had to rebuild that tight end room, and so we're searching for names that avoid the 0, and then names that have the upside that could maybe, deliver us a strength. So, Darren Waller added off of waivers this past week in hopes that they would be able to activate him after this IR stint. Maybe will help us in the sprint. Don't think he helps us the next 2 weeks. Brock Wright was supposed to be able to get some targets. He's not a special player. And then Brenton Strange was pretty good and active and involved before the injury. He's probably be the guy we're going to go with this week. It's tough, but yeah, most of the roles probably will be on the bench, but we're hoping to get 1 or 2 to stand out.
Do you have like the weeks earmarked of when you want to roll Waller, Barner, and Wright out there, Brad, or is that thinking too far ahead at this point?
It's thinking too far ahead at this point. Barner was kind of an emergency after we lost Laporta, week 11, I guess it was. And fortunately, he delivered with like 22 points. Mm-hmm. But then, then the Laporta injury turned out to an IR, turned out to season over. So then we had to quickly continue to add talent to the team. So we've got 4 guys, essentially, they're competing for roster spots. Barner has a good matchup this week. Strange probably after a 17-point week last week probably is the guy we're going to lean toward, but Barner will be a flex consideration too. Waller, I assume he doesn't go this week, and he's going to be tough to trust his first week back, depending on what his role is. But by week 15, maybe we can start trusting him, and maybe he can contribute.
I did pick him up in some KFFSC leagues. Was it last week or the week before? For the leagues that I needed help at tight end. We'll see what happens. I'm not counting on him for anything big, but I like having that extra bullet in the chamber, right? That I might be able to fire out there if I'm in a pinch, especially when rosters lock for the sprint. You want to have weapons like that on your team, and he could be a weapon depending upon, given how he played earlier this season. Granted in spurts, but the championship round is one big spurt, so we'll see what happens there. Let's go back to you, Bob. This is a question I like to ask people who have these teams high up in the standings. And I don't know if you feel like your lineup is setting itself for this 51st place team this week. What do you think the toughest decisions are on this squad? Have you and Brad had any discussions about what you want to do here in week 13 with 20 players and none of them being on bye? It's a good problem to have with some other options. Have you guys discussed anything that you're butting heads on right now?
It's a lot of tough decisions. Especially with the tight ends being out, that really changed everything. Brad makes most of the managing decisions here, but the tight end is clearly, we just talked about it, one of the main parts, and then the flex. Lots of good options, but we never really seem to choose always the right one. So if you got any ideas, we're open to suggestions. But we got Christian Watson and Gainwell and lots of different solutions here. But it really is some tough ones there with the flex and tight ends.
I think how you have it right now is probably how I would do it. I think the two guys that stand out to me, well, three guys really, Montgomery, Thursday at home against the Packers, Vidal, home against the Raiders. And then you mentioned Watson as well. Burden, I think, is another interesting guy. We'll get to Luther Burden in a little bit, but I think the way that you have it right now is probably the way I'd have it, but I reserve the right to change it before the Thanksgiving Day games for sure. Brad, I have to ask you about seemingly, I don't think there has been a player on all the FFPC podcasts I've done this year. I don't think there's been a player that we've talked about more than Trevion Henderson, especially over the course of the last month with Antonio Gibson going down and then Ramondre Stevenson missing time. And then he had the big breakout Thursday night game. We're very excited to see what Henderson can do in the NFL. And maybe, just maybe, he is on a big run for his owners, his drafters for the end of the season. They played Cincinnati this past week. And while we did see Terrell Jennings get another inside the 5 carry, we did see a lot of Henderson, and the Ramondre Stevenson we saw was pretty ineffective. What did you make out of the Patriots running back rotation this past week against one of the worst rush defenses in the NFL? Did we learn anything there? Did you guys learn anything there about what you think is going to happen to that ground game going forward?
They were supposed to be one of the worst running defenses, and we had high hopes for a lot of points from Henderson. Did not get that this past week. But Henderson's kind of a sore spot. I really thought he would be a James White plus guy with all the off-season talk about how great he was in pass protection and how great he was at receiving, and clearly the athletic profile much better than James White. Thought, boy, if he could do a high-end James White season, he could be an RB1. Now, maybe that wasn't going to fire right away, but down the stretch it would be great. But what we learned right away was he didn't know who to block, and they didn't trust him on third downs, and Ramondre was the lead guy, and so he almost had no role, it seemed like, for several weeks. But you're right, the injuries have opened up some options. He now does seem to be doing better in pass pro, but I still don't think they're going to use him on third downs a lot. I saw a stat where he was 86% successful on third and fourth down and less than 3 yards to go, whereas Ramondre was only 29% success rate in that situation. So I'm hoping he can at least get some goal line, and if he can get a big play or two each game, he should be in our lineups for the teams that have him.
So we got MLUC7X right now. David Montgomery over Jaden Higgins in the starting lineup. Brad, have you guys, is this one of the conversations you've had? What right now you have Higgins in there, but does Montgomery going up? And I'll tell you this about the Packers defense too. Seemingly they have had problems stopping the run so far this season. They look so good in the first month, and now it seems like you can run on them a little bit. And I keep waiting for this big Montgomery breakout, especially, against the Giants last week. I thought it was going to happen. And then it was the Jahmyr Gibbs show. And I don't know, maybe that plays into your line of thinking here, Brad, when it comes to putting Higgins in over Montgomery.
I mean, it's a tough thing. We'll sit down starting Thanksgiving morning to do the Thursday games, then the Friday morning for the Friday game, and then, of course, Sunday morning for the Sunday game. So we kind of do that on the spot. Montgomery is a safe play. I mean, he'll get you points. He's solid. He's not Gibbs. What I've noticed about Detroit is when they're really tested, they tend, last year when I was looking at this, when they're really tested, they went to Gibbs and Laporta. Those were their explosives. Maybe a little Jamison Williams, though he seems to have disappeared this year. When things are going great, Montgomery and Gibbs split the action down the middle, and they each get goal line options. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Montgomery is absolutely an option. They're at flex. I don't know which we'll go to right now. And as Bob mentioned, there's Christian Watson out there. There's a handful of guys. I don't think Burden's entered the conversation yet. Unfortunately, I think we like Loveland more than Burden is to maybe break out first. But who knows?
I have some thoughts on that. I'm going to hold them for right now because I have to ask Bob a question here about Ray C piping in right now. Ray has to decide Lamar Jackson on Thanksgiving night against the Bengals or Drake May at home against the Giants this week. Bob, which way would you roll on this?
I like Drake May. Lamar has been obviously a disappointment. I do like May a lot. So I would go Drake May here. I'd like to see Lamar put together something. And I'm a big Lamar fan. In the past, I've had him a lot. But obviously last week, disappointment. I would go Drake May this week.
Okay, just so I'm understanding you correctly, you are telling me to sit league MVP Lamar Jackson at home against the woeful Cincinnati Bengals. That's what you're telling me?
That's my opinion. But that is,
But by the way, Bob, not to fry you on this because I'm not. I think it's a coin flip. I think it's very, very close. So I don't know which. I always say this when people ask me start or sit questions. Ask me at the last possible moment because tonight I could agree with you and say, yeah, I think I'd go Drake May here. Lamar Jackson just too unhealthy, not looking good, not running. And then tomorrow I'll be like, my God, it's the Bengals. I got to get him in there. Like there's, so I flip flop on that. At some point I'll have to make a decision and Ray will have to make a decision come 8:00 or whatever it is, Thanksgiving night to see if it's going to be Jackson or Drake May there. Okay. Let's get back to it here. I want to ask about the Minnesota Vikings, Bob, specifically here. It is I'm not ready to say J.J. McCarthy's a bust. I'm not ready to say like this guy is not an NFL quarterback. I have a lot more questions after watching him play in 6 games this year or whatever it's been. But I do think he could catch on. FFPC and fantasy football players do not have the luxury of waiting for him to get it, for the light bulb to go on. They have to make decisions right now based on the level of play that we're getting from J.J. McCarthy, which leads me to my next question. If you have any Minnesota Vikings on your teams, Bob, and they are not named Justin Jefferson, guys like Addison, guys like Jones, guys like Mason, Hockenson, all these other guys, do you have to sit all non-Justin Jefferson Vikings players at this point based on the level of play we've seen from McCarthy, not only against the Packers this week, but in previous weeks as well?
Based upon what we've seen recently, he is definitely a bottom end quarterback in the league. And I do think if you have a reasonable option I do think you bench everybody but Jefferson. In all the leagues I do have those players you mentioned, they are on the bench if I have anything that is decent.
Mm-hmm.
McCarthy just looks off, lost all his confidence, and I'm not sure until he gets it back. I'm not sure what the offense is going to look like.
Brad, when you look at McCarthy, is it too early to write off a guy like this, or do you think that something could click down the line here?
Well, I think it's definitely too early to write him off after a handful of games, but as you said, you got to make a week 13 decision. I'm not even sure if he's going to be healthy to start or if they're going to go with Max Brosner. And if that's the case, I don't know if that's good news for Addison or bad news for Addison, because we don't know anything about this kid other than he impressed the coaches, and so he made the team. But yeah, no, Addison, there's very few teams we're going to feel like Addison's going to make the lineup.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. I mean, at this point, unless McCarthy improves his play, you don't play him unless there's a Justin Jefferson injury, and we really don't want to see that. But I think you're right. I think that these guys, if you're gunning for $1 million, these are not the players you're looking for. To borrow a line from Star Wars. Okay, right. Brad, continuing with the running or going back to the running back conversation, RJ Harvey was off in week 12. Did you see anything from him, or what did you see from him in week 11 for you to say, I think I know what his role is going to be now that Dobbins is on IR? He's still obviously contending with Jaleel McLaughlin and some of these other guys here. But what did we learn from him in week 11? What you think his role is going to be in Denver for the remainder of the season? And is it exploitable for fantasy purposes?
I think his role went up after Dobbins went out. Unfortunately, he's not the bell cow. Jaleel came in, but or however you pronounce it, they do seem to like to get him a few targets each week, which is nice, and they do seem to like him in the red zone. So we're hopeful, cautiously hopeful. We're hoping he can be a league winner down the stretch, which is why we drafted him on several teams. But I don't think you can count on him as an RB1 at this point. But hopefully he can get in lineups.
Brad, when you draft rookies like Harvey, I mean, we mentioned Trevion Henderson before as well. Do you just automatically bake in like, hey, these guys are probably not going to help us win games until like November or December? Do you automatically bake that in? Because it's weird when it comes to rookies, we get so excited about them in dynasty season, right? And then we're still excited drafting them during regular drafting season, and then we're excited to see them finally take the field. And then if they don't start out like gangbusters, we're kind of like, oh, this guy's a bust. Why did I overdraft to get this rookie on my team? I feel like if you draft rookies, specifically like guys like Henry and Harvey, you almost can't really expect them to have a significant impact on your team until the final 2 months of the season. Or am I being too harsh? Like, should we be expecting more from these players?
I think you're being too harsh for rookie running backs. I mean, we've seen a lot of rookie running backs, become RB1s, in even RB1 overalls. And the key is which ones are going to land with roles to start the year. Mm-hmm. And it looked like both Henderson and Harvey were going to be part of split backfields. They weren't going to be, bell cows like maybe an Ashton Gentry was thought to be. But it is frustrating they haven't had as strong of a role and as good of performances as they looked like going into a Sean Payton offense and being drafted early in the second round in Henderson.
Steven Yergalos up from Fantasy Sopranos, Brad, chiming in right now. Peyton and Vrabel in a competition with who's dumber when it comes to playing these running backs. And listen, I will say, and Steve is great. I love Steve, but I will say, and I'm guilty of this too, I am constantly looking at these players specifically through a fantasy lens. And when I see these fantasy weapons take the field instead of Henderson, guys like I know the limited ceiling of Ramondre Stevenson. I know that Terrell Jennings is not a pedigreed guy. And it's very frustrating for me to see these guys out there in the money spots when Henderson should be out there, in my opinion. I'm not seeing these guys in practice. I'm not talking to them. There's so much stuff going on behind the scenes that I don't know about. So I always try to bring myself back to that. Also understanding that, yeah, some of these guys do get fired for making decisions like this too. So we'll see. And Vrabel's winning games. Like, he's crushing it. So is Peyton right now. So it's difficult for anybody to fry them and say that they're under all this pressure when they're, two of the best teams they're coaching two of the best teams in the NFL. But I do get
and Dobbins was doing well when he was healthy. So it was hard to say that they should be playing Harvey over Dobbins. He was doing very well. And pass pro, I think, was getting it for both players.
Rob Phillips chiming in on YouTube. Bob, I'm going to throw this one to you here. Do you see any value in Hollywood Brown for the sprint? I'm looking at dropping him for the likes of Pat Bryant, Greg Dortch, Isaiah Hodgins, or Andrei Iosivas. Now, when it comes to dropping him for the uninitiated, once you're dropping these players in the main event or the Big Gorilla in the FFPC, you cannot pick them back up. So if you let Hollywood Brown loose, you can't get him back at any point during the season. Doesn't matter how many bidding dollars you have left. Bob, when you look at Hollywood Brown and his role and what you think he's going to do for the sprint, do you see more value in any of these players, Bryant, Dortch, Hodgins, or Iosivas?
Hollywood Brown, I don't see much of a role unless there's some injury to establish that role again. So I understand dropping him for those players, although those players aren't necessarily slam dunks either.
No.
But, without some outside factor with Holly Brown, I don't see him being startable with his current role. I don't see that role changing without injury. So it really is, if you want to take a shot with a Pat Bryant or something like that, or Dortch. But again, those aren't, solid choices right now either. So,
Brad, would you stand pat with Brown here? Or if you were to drop him, who would be your number one choice out of these four to pick up?
So, I mean, like, if you had a Mahomes on your team, you could say, well, maybe I want to keep with the link with Brown, but Brown's a lightning in the bottle guy, right? He could get you a big play, but he's probably not going to get you a lot of plays. The most interesting name there, I think, is Pat Bryant. A rookie that was well thought of, was likened to Mike Thomas by Peyton, and his role seems to increase each week. He's gone through a bye. Marvin Mims is banked up, so I'm anxious to see what he does coming out of the bye.
By the way, I'm with you guys on this. I think it is Bryant, and I would drop Hollywood Brown for Pat Bryant right now, because if you're going to roster some of these guys, it's all about ceiling. It's not about floor anymore. And quite frankly, I don't even know how much floor Marquise Brown ever had. So there's something to be said for that. As far as Dortch goes, I mean, he's fine. I just don't imagine that he is going to be a difference maker down the stretch. He's more of a possession type guy. Doesn't have big spike week ability. Hodgins too. I don't see it there. I just don't see him consistently being used enough. And Iosivas, I mean, the thing I'll say about him is, yeah, he was okay last week, but now that Gesicki is off IR, I mean, they like to use Gesicki when I feel like I'm Donald Trump now. Like, we love to say Gesicki. But we love to use him when one of the big guns are down for Cincinnati, be it Chase or Higgins. And even if Higgins doesn't come back, I wonder if Gesicki kind of caps the upside for Iosivas. If Gesicki and Higgins are both out, then okay, I can see the Iosivas thing with Burrow coming back. Now that's not really going to be the case, or it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case, which is when, to come full circle, that's Pat Bryant here, and that's who I would do, or that's who I would cut Hollywood Brown for as well. Okay, guys, Luther Burden, Bob, we'll throw it to you. Brad, you gave us a few thoughts on him earlier. I have a few thoughts as well. Is there a late season breakout coming for Luther Burden, or is it only going to happen where he is startable in FFPC, league playoffs or championship sprint leagues, championship sprint format in like the main event, the Big Gorilla? Is it only possible to start him if you have a DJ Moore injury, if you have a Rome Odunze injury? How much standalone value is there for Burden, or is there just none that you're seeing right now, Bob?
There's potential. I do like him as a player. There are a lot of mouths to feed there. A lot of good offensive weapons that they go to. More Odunze, Loveland, as Brad mentioned, is kind of coming on. They still play Komet. You got the 2 tight end sets that kind of limits its ability too. So I'm not sure he's a clear flex without some kind of injury that takes him, a step forward. But I do like him as a player, and if I could really get some yards after the catch, break something free for a touchdown or something like that, start earning some more targets. But that end of the year schedule is so rough that it's going to be hard to see him as a clear flex even without some kind of injury.
Brad, I mean, Bob just mentioned it to you, mentioned it as well. You said it earlier. You guys prefer Loveland over Burden. Obviously the FFPC tight end premium format plays into that. Is there another significant reason or reasons that maybe Bob just touched on it as well, that you believe that Loveland would be the guy that you're more excited about down the stretch over Burden here?
Yeah, I don't know the stats right off the top of my head, but I think Loveland's got like 3 touchdowns over the last half a dozen weeks or so, more than Tyler Warren. So I think he's coming into his own. He's out snapping Komet. So he's the better receiver of the two. So and been a big target for the young quarterback. So I think he's going to get similar action to Burden, but you get the 1.5 premium and the higher chance for a touchdown. So I think I would lean toward him in FFPC.
And it makes sense too. And I think I'm with you on that. Like Burden is a guy that I have on a bunch of rosters, and if things are going correct, he's going to be on my bench. If they're not going correct, I'll have to start him or whatever. And I'll just say I have a hard cutoff on this. Like if Moore and Odunze are healthy, I can't really play Burden unless I'm in a super desperate situation. Cannot do it. Won't do it. Now I'm doing George W. Bush. Not going to do it. Or George H.W. Bush. Not going to do it. Wouldn't be prudent. Cannot start Luther Burden in the lineup right now. All right.
Read my lips.
Yeah, read my lips. No Luther Burden. Okay. Woody Marks, Devin Neal, Brian Thomas Jr. That is what Ray C is facing right now. So wow. Ray wants to know, if Brian Thomas Jr. is back, would you play him over Woody Marks, or would you play Devin Neal, or is Devin Neal actually the start over both these guys? Now, I have not seen any practice reports. We probably won't see anything with Jacksonville until tomorrow. I am assuming right now Thomas is going to be out. Maybe that's a big assumption. But when you look at these 3 guys, Bob, I'm going to get to you, but I want to ask Brad first here. Woody Marks at Indianapolis. You have Devin Neal, who is taking on the Dolphins in Miami, right? And then you have Brian Thomas at Tennessee. I guess for the purposes of this conversation, Brad, let's assume Thomas is active. What are you doing here with these 3 players if you can only play one?
Yeah, that's rough. Brian Thomas has killed us in so many spots. It's was it the shoulder injury coming in? Are these all injury related to the fact that he can't seem to catch the ball this year? I think I might go Neal because he's getting a lot of targets. And if Kamara's down, I like him for 5 or 6 catches maybe. And that's going to be a lot safer. Now, you could argue Brian Thomas has the ceiling, but we haven't seen that all year, I think. So I think I might lean Neal.
Bob, I will throw the Taysom Hill curveball into this, knowing that this dude was getting carries last week. Not saying he's a difference maker, but he might be enough to gum up the works for Neal. Brad is still saying Neal, which I totally respect and I get. Are you also saying Neal over Marks and Brian Thomas if he's back?
This is a great question. It's very difficult. I do like Brian Thomas, and I think I go him in this scenario. I think it does depend on my team and what I need. Do I need upside? Do I need floor? And I'm hoping that Thomas's issues were injury related, and he does come back and I don't think they're going to bring him back until they really feel he's ready. So I think if they play him, I think I go with him in this case, just for the upside. And I know what he can do, and hopefully he can show it again this year.
So Eric, who do you choose?
Yeah. Okay. So to really screw things up for Ray here, I'm going to say Woody Marks. So we're each saying a different player. The reason I say Marks, and like I mentioned, the Taysom Hill factor, and I know Neil got involved in this. It's not the greatest matchup for Marks. I understand that, but I like, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I like the Houston offense here with Davis Mills. You know, it's not like New Orleans has a quarterback either. In fact, their best quarterback might be Taysom Hill, who is playing tight end right now for him. I cannot count on Brian Thomas. I think that that's going to be a positive game script there, where I think it's an ETN and Tootin game, so I really don't trust him there. And Woody Marks has been getting stuff inside the 5. He's been catching balls, and he doesn't have to worry about Taysom Hill. So that's why I lean Woody Marks here over Thomas and Devin Neal. Although I do think Neal's a decent play this week. Thomas is just, if he's healthy, you may not have a better option, and you may want to trot him out there. But I don't feel comfy cozy about it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Do you think Taysom Hill interrupts Neal's pass catching role, though?
He may not. He may, and that's a good point. Because what did he catch last week, Brad? Did he catch like 5 or 6 balls, Devin Neal?
I think he had like 5 catches for 60-ish yards in the touch, right?
Yeah, and that's, I mean, yeah, God, that's because, I mean, you're talking about like, what if a receiver did that? You'd be talking about flexing out that receiver. So, it's close between those guys. Maybe I will say Neal. Maybe you know what? In order to help out Ray, I'm going to change my mind. So Ray is not watching this without purpose. Ray is going to get an answer here, and the answer that we're getting is Devin Neal, with Brian Thomas getting one vote and Woody Marks not getting any. So there you go. Brad Kruse. Just all he does is manipulate my mind and help me.
So it's definitive. Marks will be the high score.
100%. So yeah. So Brad and I are saying Neal. Thomas is Bob's vote, and Woody Marks will be the guy that outscores everybody. So there you go, Ray. Go with God on this one. Brad, Marvin Harrison may or may not be coming back this week. We don't know exactly what's going to happen against Tampa, but he is coming back to a team that has found a resurgence under Jacoby Brissett, and also a really good receiver, apparently, in Michael Wilson, who's just flat out crushed it the last couple of weeks with Brissett. When Harrison comes back, what's the dynamic going to be like? Do we automatically start or at least flex out Harrison? Does Wilson go back to the bench? Are they both startable? What kind of situation, when Harrison does come back from this appendectomy, is he walking into now in this new look Arizona offense?
Well, the thing that concerned me there is when the coach came out and said that Marvin will play when he's physically and mentally ready to play. I'm like, what do you mean mentally ready to play? Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of shades of Bucky, right? Whereas he took a long time to recover. Most people sat out 1 game with an appendectomy. He's 2, and he's questionable this week. But I think when he comes back, he's probably playable. Michael Wilson doesn't go back into a shell, and Trey McBride's still by far and away the #1 tight end in fantasy right now. So the real winner is Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah,
he's going to continue to put up 24 points a game or better. So.
I had I was in a private dynasty league, and this is before Mayfield got hurt. I lost Penix to IR, and I'm like, God, I need somebody. And Brissett was still out there, and I probably overpaid for him. I bought him for like 300 or something, and I won him. And thank God I did, because I'd be trying out Tyler Shook or something this week if I didn't get him. So I'm very excited about Brissett. I know people who have him on their team. They're deploying him in a bunch of leagues as well. What do you make of that, Bob, with Wilson and Harrison? Once these guys are both back, are they both top 25 options, or is that a little too aggressive at the wide receiver position?
I feel that's probably too aggressive at the wide receiver position. And I echo Brad's concern about Harrison mentally ready to play. And he will pull some away from Wilson, but Wilson has definitely earned a role, so is also pulled away from Harrison. It makes them both harder decisions. So unfortunately, if you have them both, you kind of hope maybe one's out. But yeah, I think Wilson has done too much to not earn a role, and he's got a rapport there with Brissett that is established. So,
and that was going to be my next question, Bob. What if you did pick up Michael Wilson because you lost Harrison, and now you have both, and then when Harrison comes back, and let's say there is only room, and like you have your lineup is a slam dunk set except for one flex position, you can only play one of those Cardinals receivers. You probably got to play Wilson over Harrison, right?
And I think for the first game you have to, just to see because you just, like we said, I don't really trust Harrison until I kind of see it now. Because it could be, you don't want that guy to go out there and then like play 50% of the snaps, get 2 catches for 20 yards and be done with it. And I think Wilson's got a good floor. So with that first game back, I think you play Wilson. And then depending on how that game goes is what you do in the future.
So I mentioned this, earlier with 2 of the tight ends that you guys have on your team, Bob, in this 51st place. When you consider other teams, maybe not necessarily this team, but other FFPC players that could be watching or listening to this, and they only have one free spot, let's call it, available. They have Darren Waller and Brock Wright on their waiver wire. They can put bids in on both, but they only can pick up one. Who gets the priority there? Who do you put more money on? Who would you rather have the rest of the way? Darren Waller or Brock Wright in tight end premium leagues like the FFPC, Bob?
So I think if you let's say you have one tight end and you need to get a second tight end, I think it's Brock Wright because you don't know really when Waller's coming back. You don't know how he's going to be when he comes back, and Brock's got a floor there with Laporta being out. So he gets you that non-zero games there that you can fill in. If you got the 2 tight ends that you can there, and the third one's as an upside play, Waller's the guy. As you know, like you just said, we have both of them on our team, and maybe Brock Wright is there to establish some floors for us during the playoffs for the league, and Waller's there to win us the million.
Brad, I'm deciding this on one of my KFFSC sprint teams. Laporta, do I just drop him? I mean, is there any? I know Campbell said there's a slim chance that he's back yet this season, and I was talking with my co-manager, my good buddy Jim, and we're kind of like, well, he's probably dead weight. But then I brought up like, well, I didn't think Burrow was going to be back at all this season, and now it's Thanksgiving and he's probably playing. I don't want to get burned by that. What would you do, or what have you done with Laporta on your teams? Is he just droppable now?
I think he's droppable. I mean, so he's going to miss 12, 13, 14, and 15. And then the earliest possible return is 15. I think the Lions are holding out hope for the playoffs. I don't think fantasy playoffs is likely realistic with him. But, I mean, you could also say, who am I getting that's going to help me?
Right.
Is the question.
Well, I think what it would be is in that situation, I need another tight end, right? Because otherwise I only have one tight end on my roster. I thought about doing like, an injury away type running back, but I really don't want to leave myself, as David Hubbard would say, naked at tight end if my other tight end were to go down, and now I'm taking a 0 at that slot for the sprint. So yeah, I'd have to look to see who the tight ends are. It's not great. I mean, it's like Isaiah Likely. I don't even know who else is out. But it's players like that. So maybe that's just what I do at that point. And at least if my starting tight end goes down, I don't have to wait on Laporta. I will have somebody else as long as he's healthy for that game. All right. We've got through a lot here tonight. I want to get through one final thing, guys. Brad, I'm going to let you go first on this one. Is there a player that you're targeting on the waiver wire this week? And you just mentioned Laporta, probably a guy that you can give up on. Is there another guy that you're giving up on as well? And then, Bob, I'll let you chime in after Brad.
Oh, the giving up on stuff. Got so many leagues, and it's tough to find drops. That's really tough. It's also tough to find waiver candidates because in the FFPC, with players locked out the last couple of weeks that were dropped, there's not much out there. I was reading a waiver wire post on the X machine today, and it was saying the top guys to pick up are Devin Neal, Jaden Reed, Colston Loveland, Brenton Strange. I'm like, yeah, they're not available.
Right, yeah. Right. That's,
So-
I mean, I think like that's the thing too. And I was looking at this for KFFSC, we were dealing with the same things. I was always dreading waivers, Wednesday nights, like where my my Wednesday evening is gone. And now it's still kind of the same thing, but at the same time, the pool is so much smaller. It makes it easier to go through it. And yeah, so this might be a borderline unfair question. So maybe like in your leagues, there's not a whole lot to pick up. And quite frankly, if there's not a whole lot to pick up, you shouldn't be giving up on a lot of players on your roster, considering you can't pick them up again. Brad, is there anybody out there?
I mean, so the guys out there that I think are interesting. So Damian Pierce just got signed by the Chiefs. They're targeting Week 14 and revenge game against Houston to play him. Now, how big his role is, I don't know, but he'd be an interesting stash guy with a fresh leg runner down the stretch. You're also looking at guys like John Mechie, Pat Bryant, as we mentioned before. The tight ends might be the richest area right now. Parkinson, who looks like he's now the number one there. Gesicki, as you mentioned, and maybe even the Gunnar Helm, who's like quietly putting together reasonable low-end tight end numbers that can keep you out of that zero but get you 8 to 12 points. And if that role grows, it's solid.
A player that I mean, I guess like, and Adam, I've been quoting Adam Krautwurst all season long. In fact, I've been doing it for multiple seasons now from the Deep End Fantasy Football Podcast. He says never drop a running back, Brad, because you'll regret it if you do. And I'm trying not to. And at this point, I guess I don't know. And Bob, let me throw this to you. And this is kind of like you're the second guy in the Family Feud bonus round, right? Like, you take any of the answers that Brad already took. But I guess like if I'm looking at cutting a guy, it's probably wide receiver depth at this point. Like, hopefully you got 3 or 4 really stud receivers that you can trot out there, maybe a 5th one. But if you have a 6th or 7th receiver, maybe those are the guys that you're looking at cutting. I don't know if you have any thoughts on who to get rid of and then who to pick up here coming into Week 13.
Actually, we just talked a little bit about the Hollywood Brown thing, and then the Pat Bryant. Obviously, that we do like the Pat Bryant. And like we've obviously talked, and Brad just mentioned Mechie and so forth. And I agree that it's dumping some of your bottom end receivers as far as that goes. And we've had plenty of experience in dropping running backs, like you said, drop running backs, and then the lead back gets hurt, and then you just regret it. And I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me this year. We were just talking earlier, and it's like I've picked up and dropped a Neal many times this year, and here he is, gets his chance. So as far as who's available, the Pat Bryant's and dropping that, 6th, 7th receiver makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. This is probably the most difficult week to answer this question. But we tried, and I think you guys handled it with aplomb for sure. Now, before I let you go, I want to pay off some of the people in the YouTube chat right now that have some questions. Joe King will go to first. Wilson versus Shakir versus Franklin. Okay, so if we look at this, the Wilson, I wonder who this would be. Which Wilson? Michael Wilson? Emmanuel Wilson? Roman Wilson?
I assume Michael.
Okay, let's assume Michael. So if you are playing, you can only let's rank them just because I don't know how many he can start here. Michael Wilson at Tampa, right? You have Khalil Shakir, who is at Pittsburgh this week. That's interesting. And then Troy Franklin, who is going to be at Washington. All right. So if I was to rank them, I guess
are we making the assumption Harrison's playing or not?
That's what I was gonna give I was gonna couch it a little bit. So I'm gonna say Wilson 1, Shakir 2, Franklin 3. However, if Harrison is active, I would flip Shakir up to number 1. I'd still keep Franklin 3, and then I'd move Wilson to 2. Brad, is that how you'd have him?
Well, that's really tough. I like all those options.
I do too. I think they're all startable guys.
Yeah. Franklin, is he like the most targeted receiver nowadays in Denver?
I think over the last 3 weeks before the bye, he was seeing more targets than Cortland Sutton. Yes.
Yeah, and he's more of a big play guy, so he's not catching maybe as many, but a beautiful matchup there. You said he was playing the Commanders.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So boy, he looks good. Shakir, Pittsburgh's 32nd against the wide receiver, and Shakir's the only guy who catches balls.
They did sign Brandon Cooks today, for what it's worth.
Yeah, I did see that, but I mean, I don't know. You're going to expect week 1 he's going to come in with a rapport with Josh Allen.
I'm not expecting any rapport with Josh Allen.
Yeah. So, boy. Okay, so without Harrison, I think you roll the hot hand of Michael Wilson. With Harrison, I think he comes in play with this question, and I'd say Shakir's probably the safest floor.
Yeah.
Wilson still would be the highest ceiling, and Franklin's in the mix. Maybe he's number 3 for that reason. Has Shakir put in 20-point games?
He did. I think he was close to it last week. If he didn't do it, he was darn close.
Yeah.
But yeah, the there's no question the upside is limited with Khalil Shakir.
Yeah.
I'm looking it up right now. So last week, Brad, he had 8 catches for 110 yards. So he was just short
19,
at 20.
Yeah.
In the Tampa game, which I did he get hurt in that game? He had 1 catch for -3 yards. But at the 3 weeks before that, 7 for 58, 7 for 43, beg your pardon, and then 6 for 88 and a touchdown. So he was getting 11, 12 points at worst over the last 4 out of the last 5 weeks.
Yeah. And what about Franklin?
Franklin is let's look him up here. Franklin. Okay, so if we look at what he's done, I'll go back 4 weeks for Franklin. 4 for 84, 5 for 40 and a touchdown, 4 for 27, 6 for 89 and 2 touchdowns, although that was against Dallas. So over the course of those 4 weeks, he saw 8, 9, 10, and 8 targets. So he saw at least 8 targets. And by the way, the game before that, he saw 10 targets. So he's seen at least 8 targets in all 5 of his last 5 games.
Unfortunately, he only catches half of them, but
Right.
but yeah, he is so he's got the ceiling. Shakir's got the floor when you look at those two. Wilson's the hot hand without Marvin, so he's the clear number 1 without Marvin. With Marvin, it adds some noise to the equation, but it's hard to say his floor hasn't risen significantly since before the Marvin days. I might still lean Wilson, and then if I need a 20-point game, I'd go with Franklin. If you need a 10-point game, I'd go with Shakir.
Any disagreement on that, Bob?
I think it is pretty clear. Without Harrison, it's Wilson. I think the order is Wilson, Shakir, Franklin. Without Harrison, I think it's Shakir, Wilson, Franklin. With Harrison, the upside, I don't think it's as different. Maybe with any of them, I think all their upsides are in the 20s. So I think the floors are good with Wilson and Shakir, better than Franklin. So those are the orders I would have.
Bob, I'll throw this one to you. Donnie Kane wants to know Caleb Williams or Baker Mayfield. I mean, I guess I'm of the belief that I don't think Mayfield plays this week, and even if he does, he'd be playing through a lot of pain. So I'm rolling with Caleb Williams here. What about you, Bob?
I agree, and it's because Baker is injured. I mean, so if he does play, I don't trust that he's going to be as effective. Caleb's got a tough matchup, so I don't love that either. But between the two, I would go Caleb.
Let's see here. Joe King, by the way, talking about picking up Coley Parkinson if he's available from the Rams in your FFPC leagues as a player that maybe you could keep on your roster. And I can't believe I'm saying this. One of the things working against Coley Parkinson is Sean McVay playing so many tight ends, featuring so many tight ends out there. It's tough. They're kind of cannibalizing each other on that. Tyler A, 6810. How are we feeling about Devin Neal? Likely will spend majority of my fab to get him to compete with Zach Charbonnet, Darnell Mooney, Ricky Pearsall, Parker Washington for his flex over the next couple of weeks. Brad, if those are the players that you are flexing out, I think Devin Neal could not only compete with them, he might be a consistent starter over all those guys over the time span of the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I agree with that. By the way, I just got an alert from another brother saying Brock Wright expected to miss this week. So.
Oh, there you go. All right, let's dole out the Lions depth chart. Right, who's the next man up? I have no idea who the next guy up is.
I'm not sure who the next man up there, or is he going to hit the mix of the other tight ends I just mentioned that might be waiver wire guys?
It could be. Ross Dwelly is who.
Former Niner. Yeah,
the former Niner could be dining on a turkey leg if he plays well against the Packers on Thanksgiving. So there you go. Last thing I'll bring up here, Ray C wants to know any news on Trey Benson, and would you play him right away if he's active? So the thing with Benson, we know he's getting very close. We know that has his window been open? I can't hear.
Yeah, they opened the window this week, I think.
Okay. So, and he did not play against the Jaguars. Obviously, he actually, now I'm looking at this now, he got in 3 limited practices or this past week before he got ruled out against the Jaguars.
Oh, so he must have opened the window last week then.
So they opened it last week. Yeah. Okay. So if he is ready, and if he is going to be going in week 13 against a fairly decent matchup here against the Buccaneers. Well, I shouldn't say that because the way you beat Tampa is through the air, right? You don't beat them on the ground. You saw Matthew Stafford and Devontae Adams and Sean McVay. They got up 21-0. They weren't running the ball. They were still throwing it all over the field because they knew that was their best chance to keep the ball and keep the ball moving. So I guess like Trey Benson here, it's not the greatest rushing matchup, but we know he could catch passes. Amari DeMarcado is dealing with a high ankle sprain. They have Michael Carter. They have Bam Knight. I don't know, Bob. I mean, like if Benson is available and active and he is starting and we find out he's starting against Tampa, would you flex him out in an FFPC league?
I think so. The Carter and Knight, I don't think they like either one of them that much, to tell you the truth. So I think Benson, if he's healthy, and he's basically had now 2 weeks of practice, I think you give him a shot at flex.
The disagreement or agreement coming from you, Brad, on Trey Benson here.
Yeah, no, I agree. Benson looked really good before he went down. Unfortunately, he just had 1 week without Connor, I think. But boy, look at that offense. If you got Harrison, Wilson, McBride, and Benson back, all of a sudden Brissett, he could be a QB1 down the stretch, right? That would be good. Now Vita Vea is tough to run between the tackles on, but from a flex standpoint, Benson, I mean, it depends on your league, of course, but I think he makes strong flex or even RB2 consideration if you're weak at RB2.
Can I just put this out there right now on November 25th that the offense that decides $1 million grand prize in both the FFPC Main Event and the FFPC Big Gorilla could be an offense led by Jacoby Brissett, Trey Benson, Marvin Harrison, Michael Wilson, and Trey McBride. This could be the electric offense that everybody's going to be like at the end of the season. If I just would have drafted more Cardinals, I'd be a fantasy millionaire right now.
Well, how do you discount the NFL record holder for completions?
Yes, exactly. You have an NFL record holder at quarterback for the Cardinals right now, coming on the Cinderella kid out of nowhere. Unbelievable stuff here. If that's what happens, and I'm here for it. I can't wait for Thanksgiving Day games. I can't wait for week 13. I can't wait to see how this fantasy season is going to end up. And listen, guys, if you end up cashing that $1 million grand prize at the end of the year, got to have you back on to tell us all about it. You are in prime position here. You got a really good team. We'll see what happens with this squad, but you just need to catch lightning in a bottle for a few weeks. And you definitely, the lightning is out there and your bottle is big. We'll see if you can grab it. Thank you
We
so
got
much.
a chip in the chair.
Chip in a chair, baby. Chip in a chair. That's all it takes. Brad and Bob Kruse, the 51st place team owners in the FFPC Main Event, 47 league titles to their name, joining me on the RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown tonight. Guys, this was an absolute pleasure. I wish you guys nothing but the best of luck the rest of the way. Enjoy the remainder of the fantasy season, and a happy Thanksgiving from me to you guys and the entire Kruse family as well.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for having us.
You got it. Thanks, guys. Don't be a stranger. We'll talk with you again very, very soon. Brad and Bob Kruse hanging out here on the RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown, the Thanksgiving edition of the RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown. So much fun to have those guys on tonight. I want to remind everybody, if you want to play the FFPC Weekly Challenge, you can do so at myffpc.com, myffpc.com. There's no draft, no salary cap. You're just picking the 10 players you want or the 12 players you want. If you want to play with kickers and defenses, only one player per NFL team. That's the slant. So if you want Aaron Rodgers, you can't have DK Metcalf. If you want Jalen Hurts, you can't have A.J. Brown. Win up to $2,500, 10, 30, and 100 team contests over at myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live. And here's the schedule this week. So obviously, we're not going live on FFPC Insider Access on this Thursday because it's Thanksgiving. So what we did was a special Monday show last night with 1 Week Season and RotoWorld's own Mark Garcia at High-Low FF. He joined me for 2 hours. A lot of great stuff there. I mean, he is a DFS expert, but I think that a lot of the DFS stuff that he broke down is really going to help you set your lineups for Week 13 and going forward to try to figure out what these teams are now that we're nearly to the big money weeks. So you can watch a replay of that on the Better Sports Network and the FFPC socials, as well as the YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Got the audio uploaded for that as well. Tonight we had Brad and Bob Kruse. Next week, I saw him in the chat, Mac Nova, Mackenzie Kramer, who also has a top 100 team in the FFPC Big Gorilla. He's going to join me. The ESPN statistician, researcher extraordinaire. He joined Farrell and I on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour a year or so ago, and he'll be our guest on the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown next week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. This Friday, in honor of Black Friday, who better to have on than the great Larry Schechter, who wrote the history of fantasy sports. It makes for a great gift this season for Hanukkah, for Christmas, for holidays, whatever. Get out there and get it. You can get it on Amazon. He's going to tell us all about that book this Friday when he joins us on the show, as well as how his Big Gorilla teams are doing so far this year as he's gunning for a $1 million grand prize. That will be Black Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern, after the Bears and Eagles wrap up. You get a great high-stakes fantasy football hour show. What more could you want on Friday than that? And that will complete our shows this week. And that's going to complete our show tonight. For Brad Kruse, for Bob Kruse, I have been Eric Balkman. This has been the RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown. We will talk with you next Tuesday at 10 p.m. and, of course, live on the HSFF Hour this Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Be good, everybody. Have a wonderful, safe, and happy Thanksgiving. And enjoy that football on Thursday as well. Talk with you Friday.
Thank you for listening to the High Stakes Lowdown, a RotoViz podcast brought to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship. And thanks to Grapes for our theme music. Please review the podcast on Apple Podcasts under the RotoViz radio feed. It helps us find new listeners. Contact us via email at rotovizradio@gmail.com. We'd love to hear what you think, and connect with us on X at RotoVizRadio. Remember, you can always support the show by subscribing to RotoViz at a 10% discount using the code RVRadio2025. That's RVRADIO2025 through the NFL Podcast homepage at rotoviz.com/podcast.